Welcome to our webinar today. This is an amazing crew that we've got talking about the types of tools and probes you need to use with whatever you're doing and how to apply them to measureQuick and a variety of tests and methods for measureQuick. Let's do a roundabout here as to who's here and what they're at. So we know we have Eric Kaiser from TruTech and Kyle, Riccardi, and Ben Chouinard. Eric, why don't you go first and just introduce yourself as to where you're at, what are you doing, and why you're here?
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me here. Eric Kaiser with TruTech Tools. I am titled as the Industry Engagement Manager, and what I do is really take information out to the industries that we serve as far as the HVAC building performance industries, and then I also take critical looks at the industry and make sure that we as a company are serving the industries well, making sure that we have all the products that the industries need, and just generally being a solid interface between the industries and the company.
So I guess to sum that up as you are the chosen one for TruTech Tools to be the answer for all things technical. Is that a fair statement?
I do some technical support and help people internally if customers have questions. I'll help them find the answers or get answers for them. I look at our website critically and make sure that our web team is making sure that we have a good customer experience on our website and try to help them with that. They do a really good job on their own. Maybe help them tweak it a little bit. And I do a bunch of other stuff as well internally in the company.
Yeah, you are well represented all over for everything. The other two guests we have here, Kyle and Ben, are also measureQuick users and trainers. So they are a major resource for what I do and what measureQuick needs all over the country. If you have other questions about tools or training or how to get your technicians to understand how these things work, we want those questions too. So I want you to tell us where you're at and what your company's all about.
So we're in South Florida, Climate Zone 1, the Treasure Coast. I'm owner of AC Authority. We've been in business for about 5 years. And we'd like to say that we prioritize advanced diagnostics and deployment of specialty tools to provide the best experience for our customers.
How many technicians do you guys have currently?
We're currently at 5.
Okay, I got Ben Chouinard down here. Ben, tell us about where you came from and now where you're headed as to what you're doing. So I think it's a major play. We're all excited about your new future.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you having me here, gentlemen. So currently I am at Unified Comfort Systems. I'm the vice president here, brand new division for a large construction company that currently does weatherization, insulating, air envelope testing, and tightness. And they were interested in getting into the HVAC side of things. And so I came over from Simpson Salute Heating and Air. There I was the lead trainer for their technical director. We did a lot of training with measureQuick, smart tools, and overall processes and the installation and service side of things. So I'm here starting this new chapter and looking forward to it. But measureQuick and smart tools and the processes that we put in place there will be something we're integrating here as we move forward.
I do have a couple of introductory slides that I think are either interesting, cool, fun. They give some insight as to what it is we want to focus on today. One of which is I got this from Rob Minnick. He described that all of these instruments we're using are a concert of measurements and tools. I thought should make an illustration that kind of highlights that. You may or may not use all of the 9 probes or in the electrical meter, but the goal is you're getting as many measurements as you can, and either yourself or letting measureQuick kind of determine what are some of your outcomes. And that's really what we focus on, is we are smarter than all techs collectively, because we are all techs collectively, including Jim Bergman. Jim Bergman is the brain behind all these things. So if you think you can keep up with all these 9 probes and what Jim Bergman tells you, then measureQuick is definitely too slow for you. One of the things that I always remind people about is some of the people who indirectly influence us or tell us the things we do that, you know what, if you can't manage what you don't measure. This is Edwards Demings. If you're not familiar with Edwards Demings, I highly recommend you Google him and see some of the other great insights that he's brought to all industries, including something that's ours. He was not directly related to HVAC. He's mostly automobile and industry in general, but his insights are truly what allows, I think, all industries to accept that. The one thing that I always depend on Edwards Demings as a quote is that your technicians don't fail. The process that you've set up for your technicians is really the failure. So if you're not giving them the tools they need, explaining them how they use it, and following a process similar to measureQuick, then they can't figure all this stuff out themselves. So your goal is to make sure they have a process to follow. Otherwise, you're setting them up for failure, and it's not them, it's the process. I use this as for years that this is actually my concept is if you went to your doctor and they were using some really old technology, would you wonder if they actually could hear your heart murmur and really determine what are the things that are happening. And then I realized that this image I got on the bottom on the left side, you can still buy that at Amazon. It is actually a wood ability to listen to hearts, and it's actually used for people who are pregnant if they want to have their spouse listen to the heartbeat. Again, not the most accurate tool, but again, our industry is full of some tools, and then we actually have really accurate tools. And I make this analogy as to whether or not you're actually using in what we're doing with these types of gauges and really how accurate they are. And if homeowners knew that when people were using these types of gauges to determine how their whole system was working, they would understand technology is actually changed. The one thing that I see a lot in the industry is this concept about smart probes, but the reality is that these temperature gauges, psychrometers here, are giving me a temperature, and that's it in terms of what we're applying here. I'm trying to do a temperature split, but these analog ground gauges, they're doing the same thing. They're just giving me a temperature. It isn't until you start using something like measureQuick that gives me a temperature, a threshold, a target value, and a range. So our goal is to try and remind you as to why you're measuring it and why you want to be more accurate about that. So that's really our goal as to what we're at. I will take this down and throw out the first question as to why would a business model, Eric, you're trying to use these kind of tools? What are the benefits that people get out of using these smart probes and intelligent apps to give them good information?
I'm going to back up and I'm going to say that I've used a lot of digital tools and a lot of smart tools for a lot of years, even back when I was still in the field, which has been a few years. They've progressed over the years. And when I started in the industry, we were just starting to see digital refrigeration gauges, the psychrometric probes coming in where we would get temperature and humidity and could take actual in-duct measurements well, rather than just standing out in the middle of the room with a manual sling psychrometer. And one of the early problems that I had with all of these tools that we used was running around in circles and trying to gather all the readings simultaneously, because any kind of a system, whether it's a cooling system, a heating system, gas heating, heat pumps, whatever, they're dynamic. They don't ramp up and just always run at the same levels. They're slightly fluctuating. They're moving around. If you catch one thing on a high point here and that causes a high point here, you can catch them on different points in the system and get a slightly inaccurate picture of that system. When a lot of these tools first started coming out, I started looking at this and I said, hey, this is a data aggregator, right? It brings all of that information into one place in front of me so that I'm not having to run around manually and write everything down and then do math and then go back and look and find that it's changed or adjusted even more. The software is doing that math for me because, hey, let's face it, I'm not a big math person. I don't like to do it. It's a pain. And it's slow, especially to do the math. We have never done it as well as things like measureQuick and the apps can on a smart device. So as an industry, we've never done it that fast. It really helped me do my job better, do my job faster, provide better information to my customers. I could find problems that I never previously noticed before if I was just simply looking at a temperature split or looking at gauge pressures or anything like that. I found a very big value to this stuff early on when it first started coming out, and I've really followed it ever since then, getting to watch all this grow. Of course, I've known Jim for a lot of years and watched him grow through this and through other things.
So let's expand on this with Ben. So Ben, why should these companies, what are the benefits for a company, not just a technician, but a company to really bring these on as a new standard process? So what are the benefits you've seen with Simpson and what you're doing now?
One of the benefits we could see at Simpson was a consistency in the work being done. Not only the consistency in the work, but then we have a baseline to go by. So something to capture the measurements that we're taking, something to give us a process we can follow each and every time. It's not just your opinion in that number. So it's something we can capture with the technology. We can go back later, we can see it. We can share it with our customers. It's not something that the customer has to decipher when you're trying to tell them about something, or if you write, hey, I got 12 degrees superheat, they don't know what you're talking about for the most part. This allowed us at Simpson to do that in a way that was something no one else was doing. Communicate with your customer, set a baseline, take a snapshot of that job as you're on it. And then we actually started implementing the commission agent there. So we have one guy, that's all he does. And every job, every time, every probe, that's what he was doing. And it was a game changer for us. So our callbacks went down substantially, probably in the at least double digit as far as the percentage wise goes. When I first started there and we weren't using measureQuick, we brought that on. We were in the 20% callback rate, which was pretty high.
Or for installation.
So if you were to count both of them, we were in that upper 21%, which was high, but there really wasn't too many processes in place as to how things were being done, what tools were being used. They were just charging it. It was blowing cold. We're done. And they leave. As that's a recipe for disaster. Once we started implementing measureQuick, right now, as I was leaving there, we're probably in the 4 to 5% callback rate now at Simpson. So that's a huge plus for the company. So
that's a 75 to 80%
Yeah.
reduction
it's
in callback
huge
numbers.
And our number one callback was probably airflow. These guys were not setting the airflow right, or they were just guessing, hey, I got 20 degree split, I'm good. And they walk away.
You have a calibrated hand that tells you how much airflow.
So that's a problem. As our 22 days, we could get away with that. Now we just can't. Not to mention on the heating side of things. So now it was a game changer for us there. So
I'm trying to remind people that this is not where I grew up. I didn't grow up in this industry. My dad didn't have a company, those kind of things. One of the things that blew me away when I started connecting with lots of companies and doing training was that there was no standardized process by which how people do things. And I was blown away. Oh yeah, we hired 3 more people, and we give them an orientation, and I hand them the keys to the truck, and off they go, and hopefully they come back and they made money. I was again so surprised that there was not a standardized process in the industry or for companies. Kyle, you can go ahead and unmute and tell us about why you think that these probes have brought standardization, or how you've used them. You really have a great control over your training and how you do as a process. So why don't you elaborate on what your successes have been?
Yeah, so I come from a family-owned and operated business before my own, where everything was pretty much rule of thumb, the whole operation. The hand-calibrated wind measurement, as well as superheat and subcool, wasn't even a part of the discussion. Starting my own company and wanting to go, okay, I'm going to set a new standard. I want to use digital gauges. I want to engage in measureQuick and have that full array of measurements was pretty revolutionary personally, and then the experience with the customers was also revolutionary. One of the biggest obstacles we experience as technicians, because being a technician heart turned owner operator, is overcoming the obstacle of sharing information with the homeowner. And doing that through jargon or technical terms, you spend more time teaching than you do repairing or providing solutions. Being able to go to a screen that had standard ranges and colors that were easily identifiable for even a layman to look at and go, yeah, I'm in the blue range, that's not good. I'm in the red range, that's not good. We intrinsically know we want to be in the green range. So one of the immediate things I saw was, now Mr. and Mrs. Jones can participate in the service call when they wanted to the whole time. They can see visualized data in real time in a very simple interface that made that conversation very comfortable to have. So that was probably one of the largest initial impacts. And then over time, being exposed to more information, the growth in training, it was really amazing me to see that just-in-time education was one of the most valuable assets to getting technicians re-engaged with their career. Because we leave school, we go out in the field, we feel like we've learned most of what we're going to learn in school, and then hopefully the hands-on fills in the rest of the gaps. But there's a ton of discussion that doesn't happen around things that really take us to the next level in our diagnostics. So when I take a technician, expose them to static pressure, show them how it impacts their airflow performance. They start sending me photos of them taking static pressure on their own because it's interesting to them. I know that I've sparked something that they haven't had in 3 or 5 years.
Why don't you elaborate on that? Because one of the things that I get from a lot of feedback from people is that these younger folks, they love these smart tools and these probes. The gauges and that kind of stuff seems antiquated and was not that exciting. So why don't you elaborate on how we're bringing younger people into the industry by using these cool devices? As that everything like, oh, that's a cool device. I want to play with that and learn more. So can you elaborate on how that's working for your team?
It definitely improves the barrier to entry, where it felt like you had to have so much information and knowledge of rules of thumbs to be able to function in your day-to-day job, to where now a junior technician can feel like they at least roughly understand what they're trying to accomplish, and there's not a huge hill to climb. We talked about pen and paper for measurements. I remember target superheat for a piston. I felt like I was so sure of the number I wrote down, and when I went back to my mechanical gauges, everything already changed. It had been 3 or 5 minutes since I finished the math. Now it's a moving target, and it felt impossible to like critically charge a system. Now I can have a junior technician who's on the scale with their 410A, charging by ounce, 2 ounces at a time, 1 ounce at a time, which we all know was something that wasn't super commonplace either in the trade. And then they go, yep, I'm in my design range. I feel comfortable and confident in the work that I provided. Now they have this desire to see what other components they can provide as a part of their service experience.
There's lots of things in various industries that they wanted to call sexy, and I think that these tools provide this sex appeal. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to comment on that. And another role that I have is teaching at a local career center. And so I teach an adult ed program there. It's a 10-month program. And all of our students, as part of their tuition, get a full measureQuick kit in terms of probes, tools, everything they need to get in the industry and to get started. One of my guys just sent me a picture 2 days ago. He said, "Hey, Mr. C," that's what they call me. They say, "Hey, these guys I work with have been doing this 5-10 years, and they are just crazy excited about the tools that he's using and measureQuick." They're like, "I can't believe this kid's 10 months. He's only been in the field for maybe 6 months. And they can't believe that he can dial in a system the way he can." When they leave my class, they know how to use measureQuick. They know how to use the tools. And they may not know exactly how to troubleshoot the system, but at least they can find the problems. And so he was finding problems that some of the guys he's been working with, been doing this for 5-6 years, couldn't. And it was because of the tools that he's using in the software. So man, these guys think this is the greatest thing. And so he's pumped up because they're looking at him as a resource. Even though he may not be able to fix a problem, he can at least help these guys find that problem. And so it's a pretty cool. It's bringing these young guys, because he's only 19, 20 years old. So it's bringing these young guys and these seasoned techs together, and it's pretty amazing. So I just wanted to comment on that. That's pretty cool. And I think that's a game changer as far as our industry goes.
I know a lot of people know Jim and love to hear him rant about our stuff, but everybody knows all of his background. And the real way that measureQuick kind of developed was he was teaching vocational school with high schoolers, and he had dialed that into another level. But what really moved him to actually understand all these things that are in measureQuick was his students were asking these questions like, "Jim, how can we calculate that?" Or, "Jim, you told us how to calculate this, but how can I do a reverse calculation? How would I know what these numbers should be?" And those things just really motivated him to go home and figure out, how do I reconvert all this information into something that ultimately turned into measureQuick. And once the iPhone came out, man, he was on fire. He was like, "Man, I've got some amazing opportunities to turn this into an app and teach everybody." Can you quickly share with some of the ways that you've actually brought new people on, Kyle, and why measureQuick has been a major resource as to we've figured this out a lot quicker for those guys?
Yeah, so ground up training has really changed with the process of digital tools. When I went to school back when I was 15, it was a 2-year course, And by the time I was done, I was only mostly confident on carrying a tool bag, let alone going to a job site and accurately diagnosing anything refrigerant related. Yeah, I could identify components and look around, maybe electrical troubleshoot, but to say that I know my airflow is good and things of that nature was a foreign discussion. Now, within 30, 60, 90 days with exposure to measureQuick, I'll often hear terms like, wow, it was that simple. So deploying all your probes, making sure that they were set up properly. I often will joke that it is easier to train new as long as they have the attitude than to change old. Getting an existing technician that has learned so much out in the field with rules of thumb is usually a more difficult challenge to turn around and adopt newer concepts and ideas.
Can you, since you seem to be one of our more senior folks here, can you elaborate as to why the HVAC industry has been slow to adopt these newer technologies, or why? I understand whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you grew up with is your strength, and it's a challenge to move past that. But can you elaborate as to why we think that there is slow adoption?
And thanks, Joe, for calling me old.
Yeah, no, correction, experience. Okay, how about that? Is that better?
I might have been around the industry for a few more years, but I don't know if I got more experience than these other two guys sitting here.
Yeah.
But I think it's just human nature, really, to be not want to change. And it's one of the challenges that not only this industry, we like to think that this industry is to change, but really it's humans that are hard to change in any industry. We are not alone in that in this industry. But I think it's just that we don't want to change. Sometimes we like the old things. And I think that there's a great way to honor old things. I keep nice old stuff sitting around here on my tables. I got stuff hanging up on my walls and elsewhere in my office here because I honor those old things. And I say, look, that's where we came from. And one of my favorite phrases is that we stand on the shoulders of those that came before us, right? They learned, they went to their limits. Now we stand on those shoulders and we're going to go even farther. We're going to take that next step up. And that's really what we did. They took that to the limit of the technology that they had at the time. And now we're taking that next leap. We're taking that next technological leap and we're going farther. And realistically, in the 20 years I've been in the trade, I have seen so many technological advancements. I started out on a set of analog gauges, but within the first couple years that I was in the trade, I was on digital gauges because I looked at that and I looked at the accuracy numbers. I looked at my potential inaccuracy range and I was like, wow, that just doesn't work. But why people don't want to change, like I said, I think that's a human trait.
I'm going to bring up a screen that kind of shows what measureQuick does and requires, and we can elaborate that and talk about the challenges with getting your whole group on that process. measureQuick works with a variety of companies, and you can't just buy any tool that does Bluetooth and then think that it's not like a headset with you can work with any of your phones. We work with maybe there are others on this list that aren't here, but in general, these are the kind of the people that the groups we work with. So that's been our focus. So you may have many of these, but most people also forget that you can have a mixture. So we are not solely connected with one set of these. So if you have some field piece and you had Redfish, or you could also use the Testo, it's just anything you've got, we can do that. JB is one of our newer ones. And so all those things are on there. So whatever you've got, chances are measureQuick can read those. And what it comes down to is here's the list. People are like, oh, I need all 9. I want to try and clarify the concept that you only need all 9 probes and they need to be on and active if you're in a premier service or a job. So if you're going to do a workflow in a project and you want to save that information, if you want to get a benchmark, if you want to generate a report, if you want to get a score, if you want to do any of the premier features, you need all 9 probes. If you just want to turn some probes on and get some readings and measurements and even get diagnostics, even though we'll tell you some of your measurements are missing, all that's there and it's all free. So I think people misunderstand they always have to have all 9 probes. They got to always be connected. And that's not the case. So if you start off and you're missing an outdoor probe, you can enter the outdoor information either in the gauge screen or in those areas. It can be done. Again, you only need the 9 probes if you want to get our premier features. So again, the score and the report are some of the things that people are after right now. So I made this 4th grade illustration that no longer promotes any one company. So you understand what you're looking for. And it was about the uncertainty of these kind of gauges and the challenge with these K-type thermometers and the things you can see right there that you're plus or minus on your gauge 2.4 on the low side, plus or minus 8 on the high side. And these other ones don't need to be calibrated. They don't need to be adjusted. They're giving you right out of the box accurate readings. The only thing I try and always remind people about is when you're using manometers to make sure they've adjusted in your temperature for wherever you're measuring them. That's be the only time you're watching stuff fluctuate or change. But in general, these are the tools that we're after. So reality, digital is just better. It's just more accurate. And especially now when you're using lots of these other new refrigerants that you either get a new gauge set or a separate gauge set or a variety of other conditions. We're trying to get people, and I don't think it's actually the youth that are actually wondering why I should get these. I think it's more, can we convert an existing industry to provide more accurate information? So that's my reminder as to what you needed with measureQuick or don't need in order to actually do some of the measurements. On that note, can you talk about some of the things that TruTech is actually providing? You guys are a wealth of information and a wealth of opportunity for these types of tools, Eric. Can you elaborate on what you guys offer?
So I want to back up there real quick and just ask you about the 9 tools. We keep hearing about this 9 tools. You've mentioned that several times. Why do you keep mentioning 9 tools? What's the reason behind that?
So inside, I'm looking for 4 measurements. Okay, one is static. So you may have a manometer that's dual channel, so you can get away with one manometer, right? But sometimes it's a single channel, so I'm doing static, and we do it constantly as we're measuring mostly just total static. We did add recently the ability to prove profile, but you're still just using one manometer at that point. So that's 2 probes of the 4 inside, and then we also are measuring in the actual system. We're measuring the supply and the return temperatures at the actual grills where they're at in the system. We don't recommend, I have a slide that could show that, why you're not measuring the unit, you're measuring the system, because the system is going to give you how well the whole unit and system is operating, not just a piece of equipment. So those are my 4 indoor probes. Outdoor, I got a line set, and we're going to measure the refrigerant pressures and temperatures. So there's your high side and low side temperatures and the pressures. And then the one that people forget about is I need an outdoor temperature. So that's where I get 9 from, 4 inside and 5 outside. So there's my 9. We only count the electrical meter if you're doing an install as part of our premier features, because if you do an install, we want to capture electrical service. We don't require it. Jim reminds people that, you know what, you're not going to be able to change your amperage or your voltage. It is what it is. It's just telling you how well your system's operating. But I can adjust refrigerant. I can adjust airflow. So those are the things is why we're measuring those, and we're trying to measure them constantly because they are changing. Does that help your 9 probes?
Yeah, that kind of heads down the road here. But so here's my question. That's for cooling, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so that's a cooling.
Okay, it's fantastic. I would just bring up this slide so we can talk about it at the same time. All right. Let's talk. That was cooling. Those are the 9 probes that I need, an electrical meter and cooling. Okay. For a furnace or a boiler or a service, now we're adding the combustion analyzer. And you know what? My goal is just tell you what it is, and we can work around those things. Is that right now, currently measureQuick works with a Sauerman combustion analyzer, and there's 2 on there that we actually work with. Okay, but they're both Sauerman. You can use any combustion analyzer. You're just going to manually enter those results, and many of them will actually allow you to line up your reading so they actually go right along with measureQuick. So it's a lot easier to enter that stuff. We also are looking for more manometers. So you already have 2 with your normal kit. You could capture static and reuse them, but we actually want constant readings on a furnace that deal with the gas main inlet pressure, the manifold pressure, and the induced draft pressure. Okay. All those are constant readings that can fluctuate. So we want to get those constantly. So it'd be great if you had 5, but you could capture your static and move those other 2 down. You need at least 1 extra manometer at that point. There's a variety of other tools or quick tests that we do. Duct leakage screening. You need an additional 2 psychrometers for that because you're measuring what's the temperature in the attic and also in the system itself. So those are the things we're trying to get. But to answer your question, you do need additional. Now it was on that previous slide that we had. If you're going to use it for heat pump, now you're using that 3rd clamp. And the reality is it doesn't really go to discharge. It actually goes to the vapor line. And you have to either add it and map it or make sure it's already mapped, but you're actually using it as a vapor line. You can go ahead and explain what happens with a heat pump, and everything is now reversed and how we're switching some of our temperature measurements that we're doing on our line set, if you'd like. One of our questions we talked about just before this was that not every technician can afford approximately $1,300 or ballpark to buy a kit or buy these sets. Some people, hey, I've already got the basic 6-pack, and how do I add to that? I've already prompted Kyle that we're going to ask him about that. When I go to train, I hear a couple of things at the company. You know what? You buy your own tools. If you don't have them, then that's your problem. Or we're going to buy them for you. And you lose them. Now you got to pay me back, or something that's in between. So Kyle, why don't you talk about how you learned how to work with this to make sure everybody's on the same page to do the same process?
Yeah, in our industry in South Florida, when I started my first job, they gave me a tool list. It had like 90 items on it, and they're like, have at least most of these before you start your first day. And that basically prompted me to go to Harbor Freight, buy the cheapest possible tools I can with the least amount of accuracy, just so I could get more paychecks and I'd upgrade. And what this really incentivized is that the quality of the workmanship I produced with my tools was motivated only by my own personal choices, not necessarily a company culture. When I started the business, I was like, if I'm going to expect technicians to produce the same standards as me that I would desire to see out in the field, that I have to come up with something that would incentivize and promote this experience with them. So a lot of companies will have tool programs where you can purchase and it deducts out of your paycheck. I don't mind that, and that is one thing I offer for ancillary tools, hand drills, and things like that. But when it came to digital probes, I just bought them. I'm like, this is what we're going to have. This is what we're going to have on every truck. When you have a truck, it's going to have these standard probes and tools on them. That way, we know every job we go to, we can provide that same level of quality and experience. And yeah, I'd have them fill out a form, make sure that if you put it on top of your truck and drove off or something, you're probably liable. But aside from that, through wear and tear and normal experience, we're going to cover all this stuff. We're going to take care of it. I wanted technicians to know that we supported them in improving the quality of workmanship they gave to their customer and have a commitment to them to be able to support them in their experiences out in the field. So I looked at it as an investment. When I look at all the overhead and expenses in the business and I look at the percentage of cost to that, it was an easy decision for me to go, this is a net positive investment for me, my team, and my customers. So I do have some technicians that prefer to buy it themselves because they want to own the tools. That's totally fine. Heck, they can buy the kits off of me if they want them. But ultimately, I'm going to make sure that they have every avenue possible to have this quality of tools on their truck.
So you've realized that it is just an expense that I need in order to have this level of accuracy and defend that with my clients, basically.
My office staff needs a computer. My technicians need the digital probes. End of story.
Ben, you have this new company you've just really started. So what is your plan to get all your technicians to be using these amazing tools?
Fortunately, the 3 techs that I have coming on to start with, they all are former students of mine. So they all have the tools that we're planning on using. So
Bonus.
that part's easy, and
So
they're used to the process. So.
Let's start with, oh man, my manometers are no longer working, Ben. What do I do? What's your...
Yeah, we're going to be like, Kyle, we're falling right there alongside you. That's something that we require. The company will be taking care of those. I don't want that to be an excuse why we can't do our job and follow the process we have in place. So we will provide those. We'll have extra tools on hand just in case something goes down. Heck, I have 2 full sets sitting in my garage, and so they'll probably come here getting ready to go. That's just part of doing business. That's how we're going to be doing business.
So on that note, Kyle, you said you always have backups. What's your process for, I'm always ready for something happening with my guys?
Yeah, if the truck's not rolling, the tech can't work, I'm not making money, and customers are unsatisfied. Keeping tools on hand is a must. Multimeters, I'll usually have more than the charge kits. Multimeters can be a little bit more finicky as far as readings goes, but at the end of the day, I got 5 techs. I'm keeping 1 or 2 kits on hand at all times, and as soon as there's any discussion about a lack of a tool or anything like that, it's stop by the shop, pick these up. If one's broken, give that one back. We'll reach out to the distributor manufacturer to get it repaired, and just no downtime whatsoever is the main goal.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because if it just takes one reading to throw everything off or not be able to get a report or something. Some people know where to go to get these things, but Eric, I want to prompt you that, why don't you tell us why they, even before you came on, I would actually do a lot of sessions with Bill Spohn, and I would stress to people that if you're going to just go spend, say, $5 to go to Amazon to buy stuff, you are losing what our industry has done. That Bill Spohn has dedicated his life to this industry and to all the things we do in measurement wise. Emphasize why it is you should spend your money with TruTech, because you're only giving back to the industry on so many levels, presentation and information and guidance. So it's all yours.
Thanks, Joe. TruTech they're a phenomenal company because really the way that they've gone to market for years and since their inception has been to promote the industry, support the industry, and help the industry grow. And yeah, they sell tools to everybody that allows them to stay in business and keep going, but they give a lot back. We do spend a lot of time training, doing educational sessions. We're building new educational pieces on our website. This is just a screenshot of our website. If you go in here, we've got a learning center up here. We've got information all throughout this. And we're trying to make that better every day. There's question and answers on all of our products now. So if you have a question about a product, pop it in there and ask the question if you want to know something. A lot of those I end up answering. You'll get to see that. But I wanted to show everybody where, if they want to find measureQuick tools, the easiest way is really to go into this all categories right here and go into that all categories section and look for the measureQuick works with measureQuick button. And that takes you to all the tools, and we sell all of the tools that work with measureQuick. It's one of the things that we can do as a tool-only distributor is we have close to 100 different brands of tools now. And a lot of times you're not going to find that at other distributors. So we make custom kits, and if you want custom stuff, if you like different to mix and match, I'll show you at the end of this real quick how to get a hold of our customer service team. They can make custom kits. One of the things we did recently here, this is actually a component picker, and you can click on any one of these tools, and when you do that, when you hover over it, it brings up a small list, and when you click on it, it just brings up a complete list of that product. So that's a Testo gauge. There's all the Testo gauges that we offer that work with measureQuick. We got Yellow Jacket, we've got UEI, JB, Field Piece, the Energy Conservatory, all kinds of stuff on here on that picker. And then if you want to get a hold of us, 800 number, support@TruTechTools.com. Look for the live chat icon on the website, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, you'll only get the phone or the live chat support. You won't get email because they watch that email and filter it to certain people throughout the week. But we're always looking for new ways to support the industry, different ways to support the industry, whether it be the HVAC, building science community. We're really starting to see those two tie a lot closer together in the recent years, which I'm super happy about, because that's something that is a big thing that's been a problem in the HVAC industry, is we haven't been looking outside of our boxes that we look at.
Fantastic. So I'm going to move us down the line of what it is that people ask are like, okay, how can I see what my technicians are doing with their probes, and how do I know they're actually using them? One of the challenges that you've all heard about this concept of, beer can cold, and just so you know, this beer says it's made in Colorado. Just want to make sure I'm promoting my home state here. And what most people don't know is you have to keep your hand calibrated. Like, all your tools have to be calibrated. You have to calibrate your hand every night. That usually means a 6-pack every night, in order to make sure you understand how to use your hand as a tool. So if you're using airflow, then you also have to figure out how to calibrate your hand as an airflow measurement device. Okay, so that's what people are forgetting right now. If you are using our Premier features as part of the Pro report, that you're getting this one page, which is showing all of the measurements that you're getting, and you're also getting to see where they come from. All those little icons are actually the probes that you're using, and it breaks it down. I thought I'd make sure people understood that. So here's my outdoor measurements and my indoor measurements and the electrical measurements and what device they're coming from, or whether they're actually just calculated. It doesn't just immediately enter it. And so that's really the goal. If you really want to know that, hey, technicians are using these probes and what were the measurements and what are they getting, that's really the bottom line for that. Jim's been teaching this kind of stuff forever, and I went back and we did a class, and I'm like, wow, I missed that in the beginning, that if you measure at the equipment versus if you measure at the system, these are the kind of things that we actually pick up. And I thought I summarized it so you can see that at the top is equipment and the bottom is at the system. And what that's showing me is that my return split is actually, the return is much hotter than it should have been. So if you have ducts in the attic and other conditions where it's in a different condition space, we pick up a variety of stuff for you. So there's a reason that we're actually asking you to put all of your probes in the actual system in the house to measure the system, not actually the equipment itself. So that's how we do that. In general, how do you think that this has benefited your bottom line? Because that's really what it's about. Are you making any more money with this kind of process?
Yeah, more money, less work. We are able to serve less customers, provide them more complete solutions, generate more 5-star reviews, and not feel like we have to do 8 service calls a day.
Yeah, I did. When I came in, people were like, I got to do 6 calls a day. I'm like, you're just running from call to call. There's nothing there you're accomplishing. How can you explain to people what they're leaving on the table is one of the things that people commented on here already. If I just go out there, I fix the capacitor, what did I miss?
Absolutely. I believe the Building America Project 2019, they released that survey. They're like 90% of units have at least one additional defect than what you're just going into. So you go to the cap call, you only address the primary issue. Most likely, that system was never critically charged. The airflow wasn't adjusted. They probably have some growth going on because of poor dehumidification in our market. And I always try to teach technicians, like inside out with measureQuick and digital probes, you don't have to invest all the way up to a 40-minute service call to at least feel comfortable that you're not leaving anything on the table. So go ahead and look at your primary repair issue. Go inside, put 2 psychrometers on. Bam, you have airflow, you have dehumidification. You have a pretty strong indicator of system capacity, and you can determine right there, am I dedicating an additional 20 minutes to this diagnostic, or are we good to go? And you show it with the customer. Normally, when we started the business, I would be running 7 calls a day, getting comfortable with deploying this platform. And as we grew, now I can have a technician go out like today, Monday morning, on their first call, and we'll have to block off the rest of their day because they found the additional issues associated with that. And the customer's ecstatic that there's nothing hidden and they're not going to deal with something 3 years from now, 5 years from now.
Fantastic. One of the things you mentioned early, Ben, was this concept of a third party or your third person really coming back and just commissioning only. They're focused on commissioning the system. That's a new concept for many companies because they're like, you know what? We know at the end of the day, somebody's doing an install and they're there for 6, 8, 10 hours, however hot it is on a day like today. That commissioning is just something that is sometimes shortchanged because they just want to get the heck out of there. So can you give us a quick detail as to how you're using and how Simpson was, and I'm sure you will too, this commissioning person or concept is get us here and then somebody else is going to confirm everything is correct or tweak it to make it sure that we get our 100%.
So the idea there is the installers are going to just set the airflow okay. And then the customer will be informed that, hey, we're going to send out a commissioning tech and they will fine tune the system. So at that point, we'll go ahead, we will put the probes on. We're going to generate a ACA quality install. We're going to generate the score for the customer. And then that way, one thing we found by doing that is the install callback rate has gone way down. And our customer knows they're expecting someone to come back. So guess what? If it's not quite comfortable for them, they're not calling in and the office panics and sends somebody out when we haven't even had the commission agent there yet. So it makes the customer feel better about their install. The commissioning agent makes the customer feel more comfortable and confident in what we gave them in terms of service and the equipment itself. And we show the customer, hey, this is doing what we promised it would do. Here's the proof. It's been huge. It was game changer for Simpson. Obviously, I'm planning on using it here. And I know of several other companies in our area that are adopting it as well. They're taking that same profile, that same foundation that we set there, and they're running with it. I'm helping a couple of them develop that right now. It's pretty huge.
The one thing that I failed to mention, which I should give a quick overview, I don't know if I'm going to bring up a slide or not, but when you have all of the 9 probes, that's one of the requirements. They talked about other stuff, but the other one is streaming, that you can actually have a technician stream back to other technicians or back to the shop as to, hey, I'm having some problems here, or can you please confirm that everything is good to go? Are either of you guys using streaming as part of your process? Ben, how about you?
Oh, yeah. We are using streaming quite a bit. As a matter of fact, last week I streamed with one of Simpson's techs. I'm still giving them some support if I need to. As a measureQuick trainer and user and a teacher, that stream option is incredible. So
I
that
didn't clarify
saves a
what
lot of
streaming is.
time.
Explain what streaming is real quick, Ben, while you're there.
Okay, what we're doing is when the tech is out on the job, they hit streaming. We, as a service manager or a field support tech, we can go on there and see what the tech is seeing, what they're measuring with those tools, and we do not have to go out to the job. So that's been a huge game changer as far as time and money saved.
How about you,
Plus,
Kyle?
you're building confidence in that tech as well, is they're feeling confident in what they're doing, and we're not looking over their shoulder.
Are you guys integrated streaming?
Yeah, I've been using this since day one. It basically just took away them having to verbally tell me over the phone, and they're able to follow along. Really, where I'd like to get to a place is where they'll also stream amongst each other to support each other and things of that nature. Because at the end of the day, if they're calling me, they're stopping everything I'm doing. And so that can become a bit hectic. I like to joke that Monday through Friday, normal business hours, I don't get to work on any of my own stuff. It's early in the morning or the evening. But live stream, being able to tab through and just be able to not give them the answer, but get them to that measurement. Because if you're an experienced user, you can usually see the issue pretty quickly as long as the probes are set properly. I think that's the other thing that we don't talk about often with live streaming is it helps identify poor probe placement as well. If you've been using probes with measureQuick long enough, you'll know how wacky measurements get formed. And so I'll see like a weird airflow reading or an issue with superheat. In Florida, we have line chases underground that get flooded. So we'll have a super high suction line temperature. I'll be like, oh, are you measuring outside? Is the line set running underneath the house? Why don't you go inside and put the clamp by the air handler real quick and see what type of measurement you get from there.
Okay, so we have a few new features that we thought we could throw at it real quick as we wrap up. And Eric, you've also got some places where you want to send people to. So why don't you start by, I also have a screen of the new options. So tell us what you've got and we'll share together. Go ahead.
Gotcha. I just wanted to say that Bill Spohn and I recorded an episode of the Building HVAC Science podcast. It'll be going a little deeper into these new features here we're talking about. That'll be out on Friday for people that want to learn more. But you said you've got a screenshot of that there. This grid view that's in a beta session now of the measureQuick is something I've been bugging Jim for probably since he came out with measureQuick, I would guess. You got to pull that up, Joe, or you want me to pull one up?
Yeah, of course.
All right, here, I'll pull it up. So this is grid view, what they're calling grid view, and that puts all your readings, all your values on one screen. So you got your refrigerant on the left, your air side on the right. I love this from a technical aspect because I can just quickly look this over and say, okay, how are things looking here? What's going on? What direction do I need to head inside that system? And if you'll notice, they've also made some changes now. Screenshots are back in the beta version, and they're going to prove some stuff out, Jim said, and then that's going to come out in the version. So it's free screenshots back for everybody in the beta version right now.
Got it. So I'm going to go live. I think I can try and screen share my phone
Okay.
live.
I'll
So
stop-
just clarify
stop
for these.
sharing
Wait,
here.
what? Yeah. Wait, what? You got what? So we have you can reach out to anybody who has a measureQuick email, and we'll help you get to the link. We did open up a beta version for people to see what we're doing that's new. We did open up this new grid version. We brought back the new classic report, and we also introduced screenshots. And what that actually is promoting is the ability to do a screenshot that also captures where you're at. Okay, so this is our new, whatever you left off in measureQuick, this is what you get. All right, so at the beginning, we now have this new AI kind of feature that's telling you some information, and you have options to click on any of those. This is the new grid view that Eric just mentioned. So I can see these measurements. You can see there's an arrow showing you up or down. It is dynamic as to whether or not I'm high or low, and I can click on any one of these and see the same thing I would on a grid screen. I can still see my current value, my targets, and my allowable range. And all those are there. So they're still there. And I can also set my quick profile all here. One of the things that's new and cool is at the bottom, you can see where you're at. If you're in a project, there's an address. And the reason that we do a screenshot, so you can see the concept here, and that is that my screenshot allows me to keep track of where I'm at. Our goal was that you couldn't just do a screenshot and get rid of your address because now we would know it's no longer accurate, right? In that little QR code, You can scan that on any photo after you've captured it, and it'll tell you what the address was. So there's no way to cheat our screen capture anymore. So our goal was that we think if you're going to do screen captures, that's fine. They're back. And now we know we actually have some verifiable data and you can actually use them in a responsible manner. At the bottom, you can see I got a home screen now. I got the grid. I can still have my gauges. All these things allow you to quickly maneuver the original measureQuick. So many of the things that Jim founded this on, they're all back. So if you want to get this beta going, reach out to us, Ben, Joe, Valerie, Val, anybody. We can help you get this going. Jimmy, anybody. That's the number one issue that we've had is to how can we engage technicians to help them engage their company? So we think we've actually provided more of the main features that you guys wanted to see. And we're committed to figuring out how it is you can be a better technician and your company can make more money. So that's our goal. Let's do a final rounds real quick. So, and then Eric, you can finish up with some slides about where you guys go. Kyle, why don't you tell us your takeaways for today? What are the things that you want to make sure that people understand about smart probes and intelligent apps?
Yeah, so the adoption isn't going away. It's really take charge or be left behind. We need more precision in the trade as we move into more precise, higher efficiency equipment. And it's not as big of a hurdle as you may think. Yeah, it takes some thought and some care like anything else does. But ultimately, this challenge has been overcome by many of us out there. We have a strong community with a lot of resources. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And you can take it slow, do 1 or 2 technicians at a time. That way you get to a place that you can see that adoption. It doesn't feel forced, and you get to start seeing the rewards from it. Having a technician with probes and a technician without.
And if you're using Service Titan or House Call Pro, you can track some of your callbacks and other challenges that go along with that.
Yeah, integration's rock solid. As a House Call Pro user, everything is just one-to-one. It shares right across and comes right back.
Excellent. Ben, what are some of your takeaways for people today?
I think the biggest thing is the idea that we have a process in place that we can follow that process and track that process. So it's no longer guessing work. It's no longer our opinion. And the other thing, as Kyle was saying, I wanted to make sure those of you that are struggling out there to integrate measureQuick, just pick one guy. That's what we did. We just picked one guy in the company that is excited about it, that's ready to go. Teach him how to use it and how to implement it. And then eventually the rest of the team is going to want to get involved. And they're going to see how much progress that tech makes, and they're going to want to follow in his footsteps. So just pick one guy, make it happen, and then the rest will fall into place from there.
I know Jennifer with HVAC Chicks who's been hanging out here today. She'd be like, it could be a gal there, Ben. So just to be clarifying. All right, Eric, you're up.
I think in listening to this and having thought about some of these things for a while, I think that using this data is like integrating a really good accounting system into your business. If you run a successful business, you need to know the numbers of that business. You want to know where you're making money, where you're losing money, where your money's being spent, where it's coming in at, so that you can make decisions about your business. And what something like measureQuick does is it gives your technicians the ability to take very similar data to the customers that you're servicing and give them really high quality data to make decisions about their comfort, their equipment, and what they want to do with it, because it's really accurate data at that point. People for years ran businesses off of a checkbook and some cardboard and note paper on their dashboards, but those businesses tended to not be super successful in the long run. Some of them were. Some people made a living doing that, but they weren't wildly successful for the owners and the technicians and the people that worked for the business typically. And if you want to have a business that's successful for you, successful for your customers, so that you can stick around long term to support your customers, as well as support the technicians, other staff that works for that company, it's a great system to get data to share with the homeowners. So that's my thoughts.
That's a great analogy. So I just want to make sure that people understand that there's lots of support that's out there from measureQuick, whether you get it from TrueTech, you get it from Kyle or Ben or myself or Jimmy or Val. We're all here to help you. Once they've got the probes, then reach out to myself or Jimmy or Val. We'll figure out a way to help with some free bits so that you can send your technician. We have no problem with helping you with training your staff. So send them to their own house. Jim always says, go to your own house and figure out how good or bad it's working. And we have no problem with helping your team figure out how to do that stuff on their own house. So then they're very confident to go do it for your clients. So whatever it is you need, we're there to try and figure out how to help you do that. All that stuff is on our website. I know you can figure it out from the TrueTech sites. Again, whatever it is you're looking for, it's there.
There's also another place too that's a really great support group, which is there's an advanced measureQuick user support group on Facebook.
To clarify, you don't need to be an advanced user to go there.
No.
They're there to help others who are just getting started or got advanced questions. So it's universal. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, but that's a great user support group. There's a lot of people in there that will answer questions and help you get through any issues you might have.